think it's important that every realtor should know something about eminent domain. And I say that because well, first of all, I was thinking about this. If I ran into, if I bought a house and all of a sudden I found out there's going to be some sort of a road project going on, the first person I'm going to do is contact the realtor that worked with me on the house to see what he or she says about what's going on here. So I know it's important for realtors to be a point of contact and to have added value for their customers and to be a reference point for people. And so hopefully this will add a little something to your toolbox to make you just that much more valuable to your customers that are out there. And in addition to eminent domain, I'm also a real estate attorney, and we handle real estate closings. My office is in Lakewood Ranch in Sarasota, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm available to you. You've got my phone number here and my email, so contact me if I can help with anything. Okay, so let's see if, all right. So what a realtor should know to be a source of information. First of all, eminent domain, you see all the road widening cases, all the road construction, all the barrels and stuff that's going on nowadays. Before the road construction starts, there's eminent domain. Eminent domain is the government is going to be taking some private property to widen the road. They have to expand their right-of-way before they can actually start the construction and widen the road and so on and so forth. So what I want to impart to you is some answers and information about what you can tell, get you more familiar with what eminent domain or condemnation, interchangeable terms, mean, so that you're going to be able to give your customers really good information and refer them to someone like me, or help them through the process to some degree so that they're going to come out of it okay. If they work with somebody early on, everything will be just fine. And actually, eminent domain is not a bad thing at all. It can actually help you out. And there are some former clients of mine that have learned they'll even buy investors. They'll buy properties that are going to be taken by eminent domain because I'm going to get them paid for a good portion of what they just paid for the property. And then when the road's all done, then they're going to be able to turn around and sell it. And I'll talk about that too in a minute. Now, what is eminent domain or condemnation? As I said, they're interchangeable terms. It's the ability of the government or a quasi-government entity such as FP&L, a utility company, electric company, et cetera, to involuntarily take private property for a public purpose, but only with full compensation being paid to the property owner. And this is under the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, and that's my website, fiftamendment.com. Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution gives this power federally, and then of course it's adopted by all the states. In Florida, it's Article 10, Section 6 of the Florida Constitution, and it allows the government to take private property for a public purpose, but only with full compensation paid in Florida. And we're going to talk about what full compensation means too. The most common example of this, although there could be a lot of different cases where it's used, is a road widening project. That's why I said, you see all these road construction projects that are going on, that was all eminent domain. So there's a lot of it that's happening. It can also be for utility projects, public buildings, parks, schools, government facilities. It can also be done voluntarily through negotiation or involuntarily by filing the eminent domain lawsuit. Property owners and business owners are both impacted by this, and they do have rights, but they have to understand what their rights are. And frequently what the government will do is they'll provide you a whole bunch of statutes, copies of statutes, and say, there you go, that's what your rights are. Now let's sit down and talk. I'd rather talk to them early, and I'll explain to them in detail what their rights are and how we can help them. If you want to find out about eminent domain projects, you can contact the various condemning authorities, which is Florida Department of Transportation, the various counties, the cities, the utility companies that are doing these projects, or you can see their budgeting, and that'll give you the timeline for the project and roughly what they're talking about doing. There are maps and plans available to review, and you have to typically know the lingo, right-of-way maps, construction plans, plan and profile to be able to get that information. And once you do, then you're going to have a better understanding, and your client, your customers will have a better understanding of what's happening. Now, full compensation. Everybody is entitled to full compensation when their property is taken. In Florida, that means, and there's a wonderful 1960 Florida Supreme Court case, the White case, which talks about it means to make the property owner whole again. Now, you can't give them back their property, so it's got to be with money. It's the value of the land taken. It's the value of improvements taken based upon an appraisal. It's severance damages, which is the loss of the remaining property. So, or loss in value to the remainder property. So they're going to take a strip, let's say it's 10 feet wide. And then they're going to pay you for the dirt there. They're going to pay you for the whatever your improvements are, driveway, fencing, etc., lighting, irrigation, and then they pay you for the remainder of property. The remainder is going to have severance damages. And then there's cure. Cure is a mitigation of the severance damages, like fencing, like wall, like earthen berm with landscape buffer. And then, and this is the great part, they also have to pay attorney's fees and costs. So by hiring me or another eminent domain attorney, the property owner is going to pay absolutely nothing for that representation. Now, all these costs and the value of full compensation is be based upon an appraisal that's done by the condemning authority, by the government. The owner also has the right to get their own appraisal. They have the right to get an attorney at no charge, get an appraiser at no charge, get an engineer at no charge, whatever experts they're going to need to help them reasonably determine full compensation. That's all free to them, and they should engage them. And I put this slide up because these are some of the cases that we've had and what the results are that we've ended up getting. As you can see, the initial offer, the owners, these initial offers here, that's what was offered by the government initially. This is what we ended up getting for them. This is the increase, and that's the percent increase. This one in particular, I'm really proud of because the initial offer was zero. And it was a great little family business. It was a coin-operated laundry, and they offered him nothing. And we ended up getting him $151,000. This was down in Lee County in Fort Myers. And it was for his business. Now, with that, he was able to continue to feed his family, to continue to have his operation in his laundromat business. And actually, he's expanded. And he's a great guy. So I wanted to share this with you because this is what we can do for somebody. This is what, if you just do what the government wants you to do, then you're going to be in this column. If you work with people and you try and make sure, because we're going to make sure that we protect your interest, we're going to make sure that you get full compensation and all the damages you're entitled to, then you're going to be over here. You see the difference? It can be substantial. Not every case, but a lot of them are. So not all appraisals are the same. We engage appraisers, we engage engineers, and we have people that are working for you, not just for the condemning authority. The government is going to have an appraiser who's working for them. So of course, their numbers are typically going to be a little more conservative. Ours are going to make sure that they're very full numbers, but getting it right for the property owner, that's what our job is. Now, a business owner is a little bit different. We handle, there can be residential properties, there can be commercial properties. A business owner, something that's very important, and I'd like you to keep in mind, if nothing else, if you have a client who is a business owner and they receive a notice to business owner from the condemning authority that a road widening is going to be happening, they have 6 months in which to make a business damage claim. If they don't make that claim in 6 months, they waive their claim. It's gone forever and they can't get it back. It's a statutory thing. And so even though the project isn't started yet, they have to figure out what the damages are going to be. So it's a problem with the law, with the statutes in this, but it's critical. And I've had far too many clients contact me after that 180 days is over with, and they've already waived their claim, and there's nothing we can do about it. So please, please, please let them know about that or have them contact me. In all of my eminent domain cases, I'm going to engage an engineer. Why? Because in order to do this road widening, the government has to take enough property to do it. This engineer helps us determine what that amount is. They can't take more property than they need, nor can they take less property than they need. So we figure that out. Another big issue is drainage. We're all flat here in Florida. So sheet flow is the way most properties drain. Some portion of your property drains to the road. When they put in a new road, they tend to make it a little higher. That changes the sheet flow. The engineer helps us to make sure that you're not going to have a flooding problem after the road construction is done, because then it's very difficult to get that compensation. We want to know before we resolve your case what all the issues are to make sure that we're going to get full compensation for you. Other experts, as I said, will bring in an appraiser on every case. A business damage expert if there's a business damage. If you have a commercial property and you've got a business operating on there, or if it's a tenant that has a business, they can make a business damage claim. Arborist, if there's landscaping that's being taken, a land planner, and I'll show you how that comes in, and of course an eminent domain attorney, which ties it all together. Which brings me to another point. So far as leases and so on are concerned, you have to take care of that stuff early on. If your lease, even if it's a residential property, if you've got a tenant in there, depending on your lease, that tenant may be able to get part of your money if you're the property owner. So I like to take a look at the lease beforehand and make sure that the lease is adjusted so it's appropriate before the taking occurs. And certainly the same holds true for a business property. If you've got a business tenant in there, they can get some of the money as well. And they can waive some of their money if the lease isn't written properly. So we like to get in and make sure that all that's taken care of and that we're in good shape there. Now, to get into some of the sketches, these are actual cases that I've been involved in, and there's just a handful of them. I wanted to provide this to you so you'd see this is how we prepare this for our clients so that they fully understand what's going on. The shaded area represents the new right-of-way that they're going to be acquiring. All this other minutia in the middle, all this stuff in here is the road. It's got right-of-way maps in there showing all this. It also has construction plans. That detail is important for us, not necessarily as important for the property owner, although understanding where their driveways are going to be, understanding where medians are going to be, and so on is very important for them. We put it on top of an aerial. So it's really pretty self-explanatory and easy for them to see it and read. This is a property, I mentioned before that we'll bring in a land planner if it's necessary. This was vacant land. It's about 15.5 acres. And when they were putting in the DeSoto, or this is off of DeSoto Road, when they were putting in UTC Mall, the Benderson Mall on University in Lakewood Ranch, excuse me. This was vacant land that my client owned, and we were going to have some of the property taken, and they were going to put a pond in here. So what we did as part of the eminent domain is we engaged a land planner. We came up with some site development on what's going to be the highest and best use that we would make of this property. We've got retention in here. We've got retention back here. And this was going to be, I think it was 140 apartments that we were going to put in. And then after the acquisition, this is the pond that the county was going to put in as part of the road widening for DeSoto Road, and they took a portion of our property. So it changed what we could do with the property. Now, this is townhomes. And there was a loss or severance damage to the remaining property. So we were able to make that claim on behalf of the property owner. He still has some property left, but he can't do as much with it as he could have in the before condition. So that's the kind of stuff that we do. This is a gas station, commercial property that we represented. And you see we have an engineer and we haven't put the turning templates because cars can only make so many movements. And you see this area in here was going to be taken for this intersection improvement. And after the intersection or after the taking occurs, the property is smaller. So it kind of gets snuggled up. And so we put those same turning movements in, and now you can demonstrate here that this pump is going to disappear because there's a conflict here with traffic. So you can't utilize the pumps at a gas station are called MPDs, multiple pump dispensers. They got 4 fueling stations per pump per MPD. That's a huge amount of income. This was a fourth, actually a little more than that, because this is one of the pumps that's used most. These 2 pumps on the outside are most used at any gas station. And so about a quarter of his business was lost as a result of that. So this is about a $350,000 loss for the owner. Had we not brought in an engineer and figured this out, we wouldn't have known that this MPD was going to disappear. This is a residential property. There were improvements along both sides of this road. And what I'm using this for is, this is about looking at the severance damage. You got to look at, there's proximity, which is the distance between the home and the road as it exists today. And there's also the capacity of the road. Frequently, it's a double whammy for a property owner, because not only is the road going to be widened to allow for more capacity, instead of a 2-lane, it's going to be a 4-lane or a 6-lane. So the capacity is going to increase, noise is going to increase, traffic volume is going to increase, et cetera. But it's also going to be closer to the home than it used to be. That's the proximity damage. So both of those components are components of severance damage, and they are compensable in an eminent domain case. And so here you see what happens with the road widening, and you are going to have more traffic, and it is going to be a little bit closer to the property. Here's an example of how this worked out far better. This is 44th Avenue in Manatee County. And so the home before was 165 feet from the existing right-of-way. After, it's going to be 118 feet. Sometimes that's a whole lot closer. I had a property where there was actually, and we warned about this because the engineer saw this coming, that a car could end up leaving the road because there was also an elevation, like a little hump, and a car could leave the road and end up crashing into the house. And wouldn't you know, that's exactly what happened. Now, it was a veteran that owned that house, and he was pinned up against a wall for a period of time until the fire department got there. So making sure that they get paid and making sure that we fix this. So in this case and in another case, a wall was put up to make sure that you still have that safety and security that you should enjoy with your home. These are some projects that are occurring now in Manatee and Sarasota County. And these are some projects that are happening in Pinellas County. So as I said, you come across these all the time. If you do, I'd love to hear from you. And I'm sure that your customers are going to love the information that we can provide. I want to thank you very much for your time today. This is my contact information. I was recognized as basically the eminent domain guy in Sarasota Magazine. So if I can help any of you, I'd be delighted to.